Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And those of you who will be watching the recording, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time zone you are. Today we have a very interesting topic: well-being of parents and how can we actually survive in the new era where our children learn online at home and we simultaneously work from home. We have great speakers today whom we will introduce in a minute. Let me introduce myself. My name is Olga Belyakova. I am a partner at the international law firm CMS Cameron McKenna Nabarro Olswang. I'm here today together with my colleague Tetyana Bugasova, who will introduce herself also in a second. In Kyiv, for those who know, in Kyiv we run an initiative called Empowered Women, and it attributes to our diversity and inclusion program. And of course, this is not only for women, but for everyone. And our today's topic is absolutely for all parents, because parents are parents all over the world. So let me first, we will start from introduction of our speakers, but first I would like to mention that all our speakers today are from the Pechersk International School, which is an international baccalaureate world school with a strong history of providing high quality international education to students. And it's based in Ukraine, in Kyiv. And PSI is the only school in Ukraine to offer the IB primary years program, middle years program, and diploma program from early childhood to grade 12, which is really exceptional for our country. And PSI is honored to educate currently over 500 students from 49 countries. What is also important that PSI is the only school in Ukraine to hold dual international school accreditation with the Council of International Schools in Europe and the New England Association of Schools in Colleges in the United States, which is really important for those parents who are looking for the school for international school in our country, and they could be assured that their children will get the best education, which will be recognized than elsewhere in the world. Now I will pass the word to my colleague Tetyana Bugasova, who will introduce herself and who will introduce our excellent speakers today. Tanya, the word to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I have a pleasure to serve at CMS Cameron McKenna Nabarro Olswang and looking after our Kyiv office, being as the head of business services, and also as a mother and a parent. I have a student at the PSI School International, and I'm very happy to be able to introduce you to the world top international educators who will hopefully will help ease your worries and figure out what to do at this not very easy but also interesting and challenging time, performing as effective lawyers, business people, and also parents, and be how to say good parents and supportive parents for your home learning students at home. So I would like to introduce Rachel Caldwell. Rachel is a current director of the Pechersk School International. Rachel has got over 30 years of experience teaching and doing different leadership roles for a number of international schools. Rachel has been working in such countries as Dominican Republic, Turkey, Italy, China, and South Africa. We got her from South Africa to Ukraine. Rachel has also a very interesting international role, as she is a member of the Executive Board of Members for the Central and Eastern European Schools. It's a CESA schools, it's called. It's a very honorable and very interesting role, which allows Rachel also to contribute to wider international community, and also for us to be able to learn the best practices that other international schools are doing in this region. Then we have Sydney Beals. Sydney is our Director of Learning. Sydney has a very challenging and interesting role. She needs to, how to say, make peace and friendship in between those three main programs that IB offers, like primary years, middle years, and diploma program. It's not an easy role for somebody to to help teachers with learning, and also being able and be sure that the students are getting continuous education. So Sydney is doing a lot of the mentorship, leadership, and coaching front of things, and she's the one who really knows all these things which are relevant to different age and different academic stages of learning of our students. And Annie Butkus is a primary school counselor. Annie has got a wealth of experience doing supporting children and parents in the role of the counselor, and her main role is to provide a safe and nurturing environment for both students and teachers, so that students have a chance to open up to their best potential. We also have Nikita Vasilyev. Nikita is the one who will help get your questions through and help our speakers to answer them. Nikita is personal assistant to the school director, and he is also doing all sorts of communication activities, like comms officer for the school, and our main comms officer of this webinar.
Thank you, Tanya. Just in a second, we will start our substantive discussion with our excellent speakers. Before that, I would like to take like a couple of seconds to remind you about some logistical stuff. First of all participants will be on mute, but you will be able, those of you who are currently watching this webinar in a live regime, will be able to post the questions in the chat. The questions will be then grouped, collected, and then announced by Nikita at the end of our discussion. We are also recording the webinar for everyone's benefit. If you really have limited time today to listen everything to the end, so don't worry. We are recording the webinar and we will be able to share it with all registered participants later on. So our discussion is supposed to last 50 minutes, around 45-50 minutes, and then we will take 15 to 10 minutes for your Q&A. So please don't be shy. Post your questions. The only thing which we would like to ask you, can you please be as specific as possible to whom your question is addressed? Rachel, Annie, or Cindy, given their qualification, given that we have an honor to have people, experienced people who can answer your questions with respect to the children of various ages, including for parents. And if you know to whom you address your questions, please mark it. If you don't know, but your question, for instance, relates to kids, then please mark it to which age your question is related. So that's it for now in terms of logistics. So let's start. I suggest that we start. And we will start, I think, from Rachel. Rachel, let's first reflect probably what balance is in your view, and actually how it changed during these 3 months of this uncertain time.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for that generous introduction, and from all of us for the opportunity to share our experience and perspective from PSI here in Kyiv. Thinking about the definition of balance, I started off by the idea of steadiness, the idea of not wobbling, of not falling. I think as humans, we experience this sense of steadiness, the sense of balance in a very personal way. For the most part, I felt pretty steady with the way I organized myself, my responsibilities, my time, early morning exercise, full-on focus at work, family meal time. They were some of my constants. I didn't always get it perfect, but it felt pretty good. And then along came COVID-19, and it really affected our lives. The lines between home and work became blurred for me, working from a home office. The demands of the job changed. The demands grew even greater from my point of view. New learning had to happen. Decisions, of course, had to be made as always, but now the decisions had to be made in something of a void, feeling as if much of the time we were in the dark without all of the information we needed. And very importantly, in my case at least, much of the joy of my job was lost. Interacting with young learners every day provides such incredible motivation. It's very energizing. And that was no longer part of the day. Popping into lessons to see the kids was wonderful, and how happy they were to greet you was great, but it just wasn't the same. So all of us now, I think, are juggling even more than we juggled before the crisis. And as a result, anxiety can really bubble to the surface, as can many other not so welcome emotions. During the last few months, I was introduced to a technique called Identify Your Yes. It's very simple. I'll just share it with you. It may help. It basically means you need to identify non-negotiables in your life, activities that you will not give up. Absolutely, you refuse to. These are your yeses or your yes. So it could be, that 20 minutes of yoga that you need every day. It could be being in nature. It could be that reading the bedtime story to your child every night. For me, it's connecting with my son who is overseas and I haven't seen since January. It's that time every day to reconnect with him. So I urge you all to be aware of your yes, be aware of your yeses and commit to them. I've found that helps to regain at least some sense of control in terms of the balance issue that we have at the moment. With all of this, it became obvious to those of us at work, to Cindy, to Annie, myself, and many others, that if we're struggling, so must everyone else be. And actually, balance was already one of our school's strategic plan goals, introduced in 2018-19 school year, which meant we had a strong platform to start with. But the crisis has brought the whole idea of balance into even sharper focus than before. As well as including our faculty and staff and students, it now absolutely incorporates the parent body, our community as a whole. And we've made it clear from the beginning of this pandemic situation, through our communications, our surveys, the workshops we've offered, the activities that have been available to everyone, that balance must be a priority. If we're going to adapt successfully to all the changes, we have to accept this.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Yeah, Rachel, you mentioned that you have been collecting feedback from parents since this online distance learning started. Mm-hmm. I think it would be good if you could share some insights, what went well, what went not so well, and what are the main goals to work on.
With pleasure. So overall, Tanya, our parent community, as you know, was overwhelmingly understanding and appreciative. They appreciated the swift response, which did allow for continuity of learning, a different kind of learning, but definitely continuity. Parents were aware it was an emergency reaction to a significant crisis, and that in the scheme of things, PSI was very, very well prepared. All parents know as well that students are more likely to show motivation when they have a trusting, positive relationship with their teacher. This always was and will remain a priority and an expectation at PSI. And many parents did comment in their feedback about those teachers who maintained these strong relationships and indeed made them even stronger during this period. Also, the teachers who regularly created a sense of fun in the learning engagements, they were really well received by parents. For example, we had teachers who started the day every day with a video that connected their students to the learning ahead, but with some really, really fun elements included. The school was also thanked, another positive, for the very regular and open communication and for highlighting the importance of compassion, empathy, and community as essentials, in addition to the scheduling of a strong learning program. Something that we worked on improving throughout the course of time was enhancing the possibilities for the social interactions between our students. students and parents told us that we needed more and more of that. So while the positives were recognised, we also know and accept that our parents and ourselves are looking for improvement. We agree with them that we can build on the experience that we've had, that we can troubleshoot some of the greater challenges we've experienced. One area in particular that caused some frustration was the infrastructure of the online learning itself. Parents and younger students were often confused by the need to move between one platform and another. For example, our synchronous classes used one tool, documents that we shared used another tool, messaging that happened used yet another, and it was quite overwhelming and demanding in terms of the cognitive load we created for our parents, and it was definitely hard for them to navigate the to and the fro between these different important platforms. So we have invested in a one-stop shop learning management system. It's going to enable us to maintain all of the tools and apps in one place. We're very happy that a core group of our faculty members, led by Cindy, will be preparing for this during our vacation. They're committed to doing that during this vacation time, and we'll be contacting parents for introductory guidance sessions with them closer to the start and after the start of the new year. So that's one huge improvement that we're going to make. Many parents have also expressed they'd like to see much more synchronous learning opportunities for their children. And we understand the common sense logic of this. You know, the idea that at school they're always sitting with the teacher there in front of them. But we don't absolutely agree that this is the right thing to do. We say that because students need an experience of a variety of learning modalities. So if you think about an actual live classroom, the students move through this diversity of modes throughout the course of their day. Yes, a teacher may well begin a lesson like a writing workshop session, for example, with the whole class, with an explanatory input session. But after this, the students would move into individual work or paired work or small group work, while the teacher utilises the opportunity to one-on-one confer or small group confer over particular elements or teaching points that they want to work on. So while we understand this desire by parents, we do not want the students to be online for 8 hours of the day. We do not believe it's healthy. We believe that it's essential for students of all ages to have these different modalities, time for processing and time for independent autonomous work. That said, we're going to continue to explore how to ensure that all of that is possible while helping parents to enable their students, let's say, to be more independent in that regard. The area you've already mentioned that's the most difficult for everyone, the most difficult to solve in its entirety, is with regards to parents who have to juggle their work commitments with supporting their young learners. Actually, I have a quote that I wanted to share with you from one of our very supportive parents who said, "The program's great, the teachers have been doing an amazing job, but it is such a challenge to try and juggle distance learning and 2 full-time jobs." We understand it and we hear it, and we know it's about the levels of autonomy, it's about safety too, it's about the reality that you don't leave a 3-year-old in a room alone with a virtual teacher. So even if they were online all day, they need that parental commitment. What we have done to try to help with that is to create as many very active learning engagements as we can. And we continue, as we would if we were live, to encourage this cultivation of independence. So we can't solve all the challenges for parents entirely, but what we can do is continue to work closely to support each other, to support them, and to support their children to have the best possible learning situation in this very demanding current scenario.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It sounds like a lot of work and a lot of thought put together, and hopefully next year will be much more easier. And I think the anticipation probably in the world and in our part of the world that it will be kind of blend of home learning and school learning. And our next question we would like Annie to answer, because we understand that it's obvious that this remote education is a big challenge for working parents, especially for students who are in primary school, and probably also for those who are in a middle year school. So if Annie, you could let us know, like, what's the difference in those challenges and how we as parents can support our kids and also can support ourselves so that we remain sane people, and also contribute not only to the education of our students and the family at home, but also we remain effective business people.
Thank you, Tanya. Yes, I think it's really important to lay the foundations for a good learning environment through, first of all, addressing the basics, ensuring that you and your children get adequate sleep, nutrition, exercise, and quality time together. Meeting these priority needs sets the stage for healthy well-being and productive working and learning. I know this sounds, easier than it is in actual practice, for sure, and this is where a lot of the challenges lie. But maintaining regular routines is really important, both for parents themselves and for children. This means we've had to adapt previous routines to the online learning environment. Maintaining set times to go on. We know that these times have shifted, especially for the student enjoying sleep in, excuse me, more. It is still important to have a regular routine of waking and going to bed at regular times. As Rachel noted, one of the challenges for students, particularly younger students and their parents, is being able to organise themselves and understand what is required to complete the tasks that teachers assign. In our experience, we found that parents can really help by sitting down with their child and working out a daily and weekly schedule. Needs to be and, not always sit down and have a meal together at lunchtime. That's also fantastic. And I've also discovered that it's really, children can help. They can help make their snacks for the day ahead of time so that they have them on hand during the day when they get hungry, so they're less likely to come and interrupt parents if they've got all those things ready at the ready. The other, it's also when you go through your child's schedule with them, it's a good opportunity to check for understanding, to check that they understand what they need to do. And so you can help them work out the questions they might have that they want to then follow up with their teacher to have more clarity. So many children we've found have really benefited from just having a simple to-do list, a list of the tasks that they need to do that day, or some sort of visual organizer to help them keep track of their progress. Because, we know that at school, when you're on campus at school, there are regular breaks and schedules, and they have the teachers to help let them know where they need to be at what time. So it's really helpful if parents can sit and work that schedule out with their children. Another thing we've noticed, or I've noticed in particular, is that some students spend an awful lot of time on, some tasks. So it's important, I think, to note, most teachers will let children know how long a task should take. So I think it's good to be mindful of if your child is spending way more time than expected on a task or not enough. So actually later on in this webinar, we'll talk a bit more about resilience. Because I think one of the opportunities that online learning has provided is that children can be encouraged to solve and as they face different challenges to that which they faced at school. So I think as parents, we can really help our children try and first work out things for themselves rather than always looking to us to find solutions. The only other comment that I would make at this point was also, by now, all families, I think, have set up working and study spaces within their homes and their apartments. And it's a good time, I think, to reflect over the summer and ask your children if they need anything else in their study space that would help them, just to make sure that they have any resources at hand. Especially for younger children, it can be really helpful to have play areas set up, or like an art area set up where they can draw, perhaps a quieter space for reading, or a place for Lego and construction. So if you have those things set up, it can make it much easier. I think that's probably all I wanted to say at this point.
Many thanks, Annie. Actually, thank you very much. And I wish we had this webinar a little bit earlier, because I have a daughter who is now in the first class. He is first year student. And just last week, we started doing these daily schedules, and that works for me surprisingly well. Yeah, because really you are right. They have a very, very precise schedule at schools, and that helps a lot. And when my daughter just make tick box what she did, and at the end of the day, they are so much proud. They did everything from the list, and this is another reason for children to be proud of and to be praised. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Cindy, you have a lot of experience working with secondary school children. Yeah, and can you please share your view how their perception of online learning is different from smaller kids, and what actually can we do for them and for us being parent of secondary school children?
Of course, thank you. As Annie mentioned, students really do better with schedules and routines. And we have found that as young people are gaining independence and developing their self-management skills, they practice and utilize these abilities, such as planning their own schedules and developing routines that fit their individual needs. When they're given expectations a week in advance, for example, they can plan how to accomplish the work on a schedule that really fits them best. I don't know about all of you, but for me, I really value doing some projects really intensely and strongly focused, and others I like doing a little bit over time with breaks in between, depending on the nature of the task at hand. And I suspect many of you are like me and really appreciate having the ability to work on projects based on your own rhythms. And our students are no different in this, valuing this freedom. Additionally, is what might not surprise many of you, they report really appreciating the ability to sleep in if they don't have class in the morning. Some of you might also have a similar kind of appreciation for the occasional lie-in. So, but overall, what we're finding is that through having choice in developing their schedule, they're able to really construct the learning based on the pacing that works for themselves best. And they recognize that when they're working remotely, they have more control on their time. And so instead of really keeping pace based off of what the class needs are, they personalize, which makes them more motivated to be effective with their time. Quoting some of the feedback we got from our students, one student noted, "I really enjoyed distant learning even though it was challenging at times. I found myself feeling more motivated and confident, which in turn upped my grades." So while in school, not all students are comfortable asking the teacher to repeat something that they said or asking a question. And so this is another area that we've seen our students really thrive in the online learning, because in remote asynchronous learning, if they have a video, they can pause, rewind, watch the video as often as needed, and send private messages to the teachers when questions arise, which allows them to build more confidence in themselves. And they've also really reported valuing an opportunity for more one-on-one meetings with their teachers, which has allowed for more personalization of their learning. All that said, we do recognize that students of all ages are still developing self-management skills. And as they have additional practice, these skills are developing. For example, while some started out struggling to remember meeting times, they found that they were able to come up with strategies, or they were helped to discover some strategies to help them meet these obligations, which then helped build skills that they'll use throughout their life. We've also found some students report difficulty with focusing. And we've noticed that this can be related to a number of different possibilities, such as not getting enough sleep, being anxious, or, as Rachel mentioned before, the cognitively overtasked. So while we're working to reduce some of those cognitive demands of understanding expectations with our new learning management system, other things we're doing are teaching them strategies to reduce their anxiety, encouraging them to get sufficient sleep, all of which are areas that all of you as parents can also reinforce and help pass that message that all of this is going to be okay, and that the value of sleep and really making sure that we're able to be resilient and happy. But really, for me, the most important aspect and the biggest struggle for our students of all ages really comes with the loss of the social connection. And it's a concern for students of all ages, but in particular our adolescents, our teens and our tweens. They're working to develop an understanding of their identity. They're managing emotions which are exaggerated by the hormones surging throughout them during this time. And they're learning to understand the complexities of social dynamics in relationships. And so one of the strategies that we're really working on is trying to incorporate time for connections when students are learning together, so that they have that time to have that reconnection, that social piece that is so lacking when we're not face to face.
Many thanks, Cindy. And Rachel, before we move to the resilience part of our webinar, just would you like to add something on the parents front?
For sure. Thank you, Olga. Yes, I think we must always remember as parents, we are our children's role models. So I'd like for us all to consider how we can find the positive opportunities in the demands that we continue to face during this time. It's important that as much as possible, our children see us sharing a positive mindset, sharing appreciation, sharing gratitude, looking for the joy that is there, and finding ways to lift each other up in all of this. Think about what you want your children to remember most about this extraordinary period of history. So rather than the disruption or an irritated parent or the sadness that's around, let it be that fun family time you created. Let it be the ways that you helped other people, you showed your service to the community. We actually shared a graphic in our community that's been doing the rounds in a number of the webinars that I've taken previously, and also on social media, that you might find useful. You can use this in lots of different ways. Just have a peek at it while I'm speaking. Personally, I used this to build my own self-awareness of what was going on for me at this time. And then I moved into using it to help me set a few goals for how I could do a better job in my own estimation. Nobody else being my judge, just me. Could be goals in the near future or in the more distant future. It's about making a commitment to being the best version of yourself at this time, and to help it to guide you to know as well when is the right time to ask for help. This is something that we say to our students. This is something we say to our faculty. This is something that parents need to know too. Ask for help when you need it. It's the right time. There are incredible resources out there in every community. Remember also that wherever you are now, it's okay. You don't have to feel badly about it. It's just very, very good to be aware of where you fit within these zones, so you can continue to track yourself and do the best you can for yourself and your child.
Thank you, Rachel. Very, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, really helpful. And I think since we're moving to the resilience part of our webinar, I think we would like all all our speakers, Annie, Cindy, and Rachel, to contribute on this subject of resilience. And I think speaking about this and how we build all resilience, both parents and students, I think it would be good for us to know what are the main issues, areas in there for us to focus on. Maybe you can share some tips for us as parents and also for our kids.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll kick off just by saying it's very important to understand that resilience is not something we're born with. It's important to know that it's something that's built over time. It's built over time as the experiences we have interact with what is our own very unique genetic makeup. You know, it's why we all respond very differently to stress and anxiety. As per this COVID-19 pandemic, we're all responding differently. But at this point, I'm going to hand over to Annie and then Cindy, who are going to give you a little bit more meat in regards to the resilience conversation.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, I mean, talking about resilience, we learn to be resilient through facing our fears and challenges and working through them, not by avoiding them, which is often our first reaction, is to avoid things that frighten us or we find challenging. But by feeling how scared we are and going ahead anyway, this is what leads to a sense of mastery and builds our self-confidence. And I know as a parent myself, it's very difficult to watch our children falter, make mistakes. But if we swoop in every time they face a challenge, we rob them of the opportunity to learn how to problem solve and get that sense of satisfaction from persisting and being able to work out things for themselves. I think as parents, it's important to remember that much of what our children learn is through observing us, observing the adults in their lives, their parents, their teachers, other significant people in their lives, and how we manage our day-to-day stresses, which I think for all of us have changed remarkably during this time. This doesn't mean, of course, that we have to do things perfectly. In fact, I think it's a great opportunity to share in an age-appropriate manner, depending on the age of your child, share with them some of the challenges that you're facing and the steps that you take to problem solve and to have a growth mindset where it's encouraged that we make mistakes because this is how we learn and how our brains actually grow. If you're not familiar with the term growth mindset, it comes from the work of an American psychologist, Carol Dweck, who did a lot of studies on children and intelligence and persistence, and found that those children that thought that intelligence was a fixed attribute that they were born with were very vulnerable to failure, because when things got tough, they were very frightened of making mistakes and gave up easily. So she found the importance of having a growth mindset and encouraging our children to be open to having a go, to not having to get it right first time, to persist. And I think this is a really important approach that we can model as parents in our own lives as well. And I think, you know, the sudden move to online learning has pushed many of us to still to look after the house, to look after our children. It's not nice to be uncomfortable, to feel debt. So learn new things. I know myself, I've had to learn a whole lot more tech skills, which has been really hard at times, but it has also benefited me, I think. So in this area, I think it's really important to use praise and support our children carefully and not just focus on achieving high grades and being perfect. I think it is really important to show children that while you want them to aim high, your love and affection for them is not based, it's not conditional on them getting particular grades or achieving certain things. I think, yes, you know, as parents, we can welcome the mistakes that we make ourselves and our children also, so that we know that by making mistakes, we're learning as we go. To share the screen now, I just wanted to share a visual with you on resilience. It's just a graphic that you might find helpful to have a look at yourself. It just says, you know, how do you know if your child is resilient? And it just highlights some of the key factors that go into being resilient. We talk about wanting to encourage an intrinsic sense of motivation, so that children are motivated from their own desire to be successful, rather than by being motivated by extrinsic results such as praise. It's all in our attitude of how we respond, how we bounce back from failure. Looking for different alternatives to solve problems. As Rachel mentioned earlier, knowing when to seek help is so important, and it's a sign of strength, whereas I think often we think it's a sign of vulnerability, but it actually is a sign of strength. And knowing how to calm ourselves, both as parents and children, so that we can think more clearly and make better decisions. And it just talks about being open to new experiences. So it might be helpful to have a look at that. That's come from the Ministry of Education in Singapore. Thanks, Nikita. Nikita, you can stop sharing the screen now if you like. And Cindy, did you want to continue?
Yeah, so one strategy that I found personally helpful in maintaining my own resiliency is connected to positive psychology. I try to really remain optimistic and project the positive side events whenever possible. This has been aided in large part through a nightly ritual of a gratitude journal that I keep, where I record experiences and that I'm grateful or appreciate. And I encourage everyone to undertake this, as I've found this to be such an uplifting experience, particularly when times seem dark otherwise. By working to find these bright spots, I find that I'm spiraling less often whenever negative emotions start to urge, and I'm better equipped to stop the distorted thinking that used to envelop me. And these are all skills that I learned with this great book by Elena Aguilar called Onward, Cultivating Emotional Resilience in Educators. And this fall, I started a book club to really help colleagues really develop their own resilience, so that they might be more present for students, given how demanding the profession of education really is. And it's proved to be such amazing timing, because it's been so valuable for everyone involved, given the current demands in our resiliency during this pandemic. So you might want to check out the book, but there's lots of ways to really build your own resilience and be able to be there for your students, your children.
Thank you very much, ladies. And it soon will be a Q&A session. And before we go to that, actually, nobody knows, I think that neither you nor us, nobody knows how the new school year will look like, both for parents and for children. And given that we are continuously promised a new wave of pandemic here, in sometime in late autumn or in winter, it may happen that we will be either mixing online and offline education, or we will again need to switch to online totally. So speaking about the future, in your view, what can we do as parents now just to be prepared for the new school year, whatever it will look like, and to make our lives and the lives of our kids easier from the new year?
Yeah, thank you, Olga. You're quite right. The sense of uncertainty can be a little overwhelming at times as well, but we've been kept busy at PSI, as our community members know, by planning for multiple possibilities. So we have produced a school reopening plan that identifies the different pathways we'll take depending on each situation. So I guess my biggest piece of advice to parents is that it's really important to accept that school will be different from now on. I know a lot of people would love to think that we'll go back to exactly as it was before. It's just not going to happen. So parents, like teachers and students and staff, will need to be flexible. They're going to need to understand that some of the responses that we make as a team are made because of the limitations or the obligations that we have because of the regulations in place. So, for example, we might be obliged to limit the student cohort size if we are able to return to campus. At the moment, the maximum number of students who can learn together here in Ukraine is 10. Now, clearly that means that in any school, not every child will be able to attend school every day. This isn't our choice. This isn't what we want, but it's something that we have to work with. So we have come up with a plan that addresses to some extent the difficulties that the younger learners and their parents are experiencing. So our students aged 3 to 6, our EC3 as we call it, to grade 1 students would be learning every day on campus if we were in this restricted numbers situation. And our International Baccalaureate Diploma Programme students, so the students in their last 2 years preparation for tertiary education, would also be on campus every day. Everybody else would be on campus for 2.5 days a week. It's the only way we can make that work. Our community knows that. We had an open town hall session so they could ask questions, etc. about this. But it's important that people understand this isn't our choice. It's our well-informed response to whatever those limitations might be. I think parents should also be ready for a much greater focus on the social and emotional well-being, which was mentioned previously. I think we probably said enough there, but it's essential that we concentrate on looking after the students in their response to this. I'll come back to that in a couple of seconds. It's also true that crisis breeds disruption, right? But it also breeds innovation. And once people experience something differently, as Cindy hinted towards some of our secondary students, they've had some experiences they love. It's going to be really hard to put that genie back in the bottle. And we don't really want to. We think that this is a perfect opportunity to improve further the learning experiences at school. So, for example, many of our students have loved this sense of control they've had over learning. They've loved the sense of their own pacing, their self-management. We want to find ways to maintain this, and that might look and feel different to parents too. As we prepare to return to campus, because our determined efforts are in that direction, we are optimistic that on August 19th, we will be entering the school gates in one shape or form. So as we prepare for that, we know that some families are going to be anxious about their children returning. We also know some will be excited, others will be relieved. There'll be a whole set of emotions going on. For students, probably there'll be a flurry of feelings, anxiety maybe, excitement to see their friends again, potentially some fear, because everything is going to feel different. So for families and children, the transition back to school might be challenging. It might be difficult. Children could have a reaction. They could become quiet, withdrawn, nervous. They could get more clingy. They could be angry. So it's best, honestly, for everyone to expect the unexpected, to stay calm, and to emit this sense of happiness at seeing everyone back together again. Make your child feel reassured that there are differences, but everything will be fine. Reactions will settle as the children become more familiar with the new routines. There'll be new routines to enter the building. There'll be new routines to enter the classroom. There'll be new lunchtime routines in place, almost certainly. So before school starts, we're going to ensure that everyone knows what will happen. We're going to make sure that we share videos, making students aware of what it's going to be like that first day as they enter the campus. So clear communication and reassurance is going to, we hope, provide this sense of safety and certainty in such uncertain times. We've learned this for sure, that the communication is essential. And if families need additional help to settle their children back into school, we'll encourage them to let us know. We'll support with this. We already have a well-being section on our website. That's been there since the early days of this pandemic. We're going to continue to grow that and to make that more interactive and useful. And we also have a task force at school of faculty and staff, parents, who will be focusing on the student, staff and parent support so that we can really be responsive to everything that comes our way.
I'd love to continue and add just a little bit more that we encourage you as parents to be mindful that this spring students' learning has really been significant, even if it hasn't been focused on traditional content. Students are learning the fundamentals such as reading and numeracy, but more importantly, they're learning many valuable life skills such as self-management and understanding how to learn. The World Economic Forum has been reporting that the skills needed by students are evolving with societal change, and these are exactly the type of skills our students have been developing through this crisis. As such, we encourage you not to fret about loss of learning, but instead focus on the significant learning your child has experienced over this time. As such, for this summer, we strongly recommend that your children have an opportunity to just be kids. Let them cuddle up with a book without giving them a minimum number of pages so that they can really intrinsically embrace the love of reading. Have them play outside and develop a physical healthiness. Have them play and develop and strengthen their passions. But generally just have them rejuvenate, as this is what's going to set the stage for great learning this fall, no matter what school or what mode of learning we find ourselves at that time.
Yeah, this all sounds really fabulous. Yeah.
And thank you very much for summarizing all of that. This is actually what we all should know by default, but generally there is no place where we can find it all together. Yeah. Nikita, I would like to ask you now whether there are any questions from the audience which we can answer and which we can address to our speakers.
Yes, Olga, thank you. We have a question. I'm going to read it through and then we'll proceed with the answer. So a person that is asking has a 12-year-old children with friendship issues. He was having trouble making friends at his new secondary school when COVID-19 struck. The family observed his attention-seeking behaviors during online lessons, interrupting the lesson with the necessary anecdotes or using the chat window to answer questions, either directed verbally at other pupils. Teachers seem to appreciate the interaction, as most of the pupils are rather quiet, but others tell him to take it easy. The school is not encouraging social interactions in the way that you described. He has tried without success to form friendship over WhatsApp. He also tried joining clubs, but they are not generating any social benefits. Do you have any tips or book recommendations to help him develop friendships when the new school year starts, most likely back to the school site?
I'm not sure who's, but I think we can all answer this to some extent. Annie, I mean, this is your area of expertise in a sense, being the counsellor. Would you like to kick off? Oh, I think we've got Annie frozen. Okay, I'll start then by default. I think that it's very important that...
Secondary school, just as this...
Annie, sorry, we couldn't hear you. You're coming in and out. Nikita.
Video. All right.
Nikita, it might be best to mute Annie for a minute and I'll speak and then we'll see if we can get back. Oh, maybe you're back. Not sure. I'll start. I think it's really important that as a parent you reach out to the school. I don't know what kind of conversation you've had with the school and who you can reach, but if there is a counsellor, that would be your first stop. If there's an advisory teacher, it could be. I'm not sure what kind of setup your school has, but reaching out to the school and explaining your concerns is fundamentally important. This is what we mentioned just before, that we want to hear from people so we can step in and help. Even more difficult for schools at the moment because we're not necessarily seeing everything. Also, if your son was new to the school, it's more difficult because they won't know what the normal behavior, what his actual behaviors are in the norm, so they need to know more about him. So as a first step, reach out, try to find someone you can have this very sensitive but important conversation with, so that the school can recommend next steps for your child. I think also we are very open to feedback, and I can't imagine that any other school wouldn't be. Talking about increasing opportunities for social interactions for the students would also be helpful. But I think before that would be successful, there needs to be some focused, intentional strategies for you and your child to utilize, so that that has more chance of being successful.
Annie, please join.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, oh, that's good. I apologize. Yes, I was basically just going to reiterate what Rachel said, to reach out and see if there is a school counsellor. I understand there may well not be a school counsellor, so then contacting your son's teacher. It is very difficult to form relationships and friendships online when you haven't first met people. So I think it is a challenge. If your child has connected with one other child, it would be great if they could have some sort of conversation. I don't know if you live nearby, if you're able to meet I think if you're able to meet face to face in any way, it does definitely help to begin that friendship, because it is very challenging to do it in this way, I think. And then I guess just asking your son too what he needs, what he feels in an ideal situation, what would he like, and then just seeing how he responds, and talking to him a bit about what you've observed in his behaviour, the attention seeking that you commented on. What is he hoping to achieve through this? He's just trying to be funny. What's going on for him? It might give you some insight about what he's really needing.
Thank you, Annie and Rachel. Justin, please let us know if it was helpful at some point.
Do we have more questions?
Not really.
Okay, that was the only one then, and we are exactly right on time. Thank you very much, Nikita. And just we would like each of Rachel, Annie, and Cindy to tell some final remarks. But before that, I would like really to thank all of you. For me as a parent, it was extremely useful, and I noted a lot of useful information, and I think it will be very helpful for all parents who are either watching us now or will be watching us offline when we will share this recording.
And we have another question, and I guess it comes from Tetyana.
Yeah, I just wanted also to share the gratitude to Rachel, Cindy, and Annie, and I have put myself a lot of notes for my own development and plans, and I think after that, it's like you triggered us to work more on ourselves, to become even more better role models for our kids, and I think this. Some of the conclusions, some of the advice you made during these sessions are opening up some next seminars for both for us to go through and maybe for school to offer, because I think, yeah, it's important now to equip parents with some certain skills so that they become greater support for their online learners at home. So thank you very much for that, and I think it would be good if we could share some of the materials you were referring to, and yeah, so that people might be able to use summertime to to develop some of the necessary skills.
And maybe to close the meeting, just 30 seconds from each of you ladies, just final advice to parents and kids.
I reiterate what Cindy said, make the most of this summertime, but enjoy each other and don't be too hard on yourselves. This is incredibly challenging. So go easy on yourself and make the most of what is happening in the world. I do believe that there is an increased sense of empathy and compassion. Make the most of that, reach out and support your friends too. So build those networks, and the children will be fine. They will be the most resilient bunch of young people that we've ever had. And I'm confident that they're going to help us to make the planet a better place, which is part of our mission, by the way, as an IB school.
Thank you, Rachel.
You've said so much of what I wanted to say. This is really the time to recognize that this is the generation of kids that are developing the kinds of skills that are really needed to become the kind of world that we want, and embrace that and spend time really connecting with each other, because that is really coming into focus as one of the most important things. Value the fact that you have this ability to be face to face, to be together, and use that to its fullest as you are able to this summer.
Thank you.
And I don't think there's an awful lot left for me to say, but yes, I would just second all of that. And I think just making time for yourself every day as a parent to replenish yourself, whatever that might be. I think Rachel began the discussion about, doing yoga or whatever it is that gives you joy, finding some joy just for yourself every day. And then also making sure you have time where you just connect with your children and listen to what they want to tell you.
Thank you very much. And again, it was extremely, extremely helpful. And I hope as many parents will be able to watch this webinar online as possible. At least there was a great, great interest in this. So we will share it with all interested people. And I would like also to thank you, Tanya, just to co-moderate this webinar today. So I think that it's right noon, and everyone has his or her own plans, and that's why we will be wrapping up our webinar. And we would like to thank to all participants who managed to do it today at this time, of the working day, and those of you who will be learning it, who will be watching this webinar offline later. We will be very grateful for your thoughts and for your feedback as well. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Have a nice day and nice long weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Nikita, too.
Thank you, Nikita, very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.